Hello, everyone, and welcome to DA Sports. I'm your host, DASASIN. This is episode 1 of DA Sports. Bringing this show to you every week, give you a little bit of insight on my thoughts about what's going on in sports. Football season is probably the biggest that I'm into in terms of more knowledge, played longer, stuff like that. But I will be bringing you takes on basketball, college football, college basketball, even sometimes baseball and hockey, especially WNBA also. So be on the lookout for everything. Of course, with it being the start of NFL season, that's where the bulk of this episode will be about, as week 1 just finished last night. So let's get to it. For starters, for those that don't know me, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of my favorite teams in each sport. A lot of commentators that you see on TV will have favoritism towards certain teams, but not really disclose who they actually root for. So I'm going to be upfront and honest. That's kind of one of the things that I pride myself on, is being honest about when I'm right, when I'm wrong, who I like, who I don't like. It's not going to sway my objectivity in terms of what I see from a game or what I'm diagnosing or what I'm predicting for upcoming weeks. But just so you know a little bit about myself and where my sports interests lie, I'm going to give you a list of my favorite teams. So for starters, when it comes to NFL, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. No, I'm not a bandwagon fan. This team, and with all of my teams, I've been a fan since the early 90s. So I've been through the bad to now be in this spot that I'm in now, where I get to enjoy a great team. So as far as the NFL, my favorite team is the Chiefs. The NBA is the Thunder. I was a Sonics fan as a kid, so when they moved, I moved. I had no ties to Seattle. I'm just a huge Gary Payton fan, so I am a Thunder fan when it comes to NBA. MLB, I'm a Braves fan. And hockey, I'm a Rangers fan. WNBA, Seattle Storm. I'm trying to think what else. College football. College football, I am a Michigan Wolverines fan. And in college basketball, I am a Kansas Jayhawks fan. Again, like I said, all of these teams that I like were teams that I picked early in the 90s as a kid. Generally teams that were pretty good at the time. A lot of them were rivals to local teams that my friends and family liked. I am a Southern California native, so that's how that all came about. I will be honest too, there are 3 teams that I would consider like secondary favorite teams that I have. Like, I would root for them. They're the only other teams I would root for as long as they're not playing one of my favorite teams. So in the NFL, that's the Falcons. I do like the Falcons. So anytime they're playing anyone other than the Chiefs, I'll probably be rooting for them. In college football, it would be USC. And in college basketball, it would be Michigan. So just a little background on myself, and let's get into it. So for those that didn't see that don't currently follow me on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, my regular pages, I did before the season started, so this is not after week 1, because honestly, if it was after week 1, I'd probably change some of these. But I did release a video of my predictions for the NFL season. I'm just going to go over them again here, just so everybody is aware of what I am predicting for the NFL playoffs, seeding, and things like that. So for the NFC, the number 1 seed, I'm predicting it will be the Detroit Lions. The number 2 seed, I'm predicting will be the San Francisco 49ers. The number 3 seed, I'm predicting will be the Dallas Cowboys. Number 4 seed would be the New Orleans Saints. Number 5 seed would be the Green Bay Packers. The number 6 seed would be the LA Rams. And the 7 seed I have as the Chicago Bears. Now in the AFC, I have the number 1 seed as the Houston Texans. Number 2 seed, I had the Kansas City Chiefs. 3 seed, the Baltimore Ravens. The 4 seed, the New York Jets. The 5 seed, Cincinnati Bengals. The 6 seed, the Cleveland Browns. And the 7 seed, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now again, I made these predictions before week 1. I know some of these sound crazy after week 1. And I'm not so sure about all of my predictions, but they're predictions. So, you're not going to get them all right, but that's what I predicted before the season started. In the NFC Championship, I had the Lions beating the 49ers. In the AFC Championship, I have the Chiefs beating the Texans. And then in the Super Bowl, I have the Chiefs beating the Lions and completing the historic three-peat. So, speaking of that, though, let's get into a recap. Oh, actually, before I get to that, let me also give you my predictions for the end of the year NFL awards. So for MVP, I believe it'll be CJ Stroud. For Offensive Player of the Year, I believe it'll be Derrick Henry. Defensive Player of the Year, I have Aiden Hutchinson. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Caleb Williams. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Dallas Turner. Coach of the Year, I have Dan Campbell. And Executive of the Year would be Ryan Poles. So now, in terms of my Week 1 recap, couple of things. There's a lot that went on in Week 1, but I feel like a few things that stood out that I wanted to touch on. For one, last night's game, the 49ers, they looked dominant. They were able to beat on another team that I feel like will be a playoff team, will win their division, will be, double-digit win total this year, and they beat them without arguably their best player on their team. Mason looked great as the starting running back last night. I'm sure they're still going to use him even if Christian McCaffrey is out for more weeks, and it just kind of showed the depth that they have, how much of their success is built into their scheme alongside all of the talent that they have. So just imagine them not needing to rush back their best player and still be able to stack up wins. So I think there was definitely probably the most dominant performance of Week 1. Another big headline for this week was all of the contracts that got signed. People holding out, holding in, and the biggest of the contract is the biggest contract ever, which was Dak Prescott. So huge for Dak. Got a 4-year, $240 million contract, $60 million a year, becoming the highest paid player ever. So there's a lot of controversy about that. People arguing about whether or not he deserved to be the highest paid. For everybody that knows anything about free agency, you know that being the highest paid has nothing to do with being the best. It's just about timing. If you're in around the top 10 of a position and you're the next one up, then, the market bears that you are likely going to end up at one of the highest paid contracts, and that's what happened with Dak. A lot of people were saying that Jerry Jones messed up because he waited so long and it rose the price of the contract. I honestly think Jerry Jones did it on purpose. Jerry Jones is all about headlines, and so what better than to wait to the last minute, which he assumed would be the last contract to be signed before the season, and to make headlines by making his star player being the highest paid player, so it can be talked about longer, and securing him being around with his number one target, CeeDee Lamb, for the next 4 to 5 years. So yes, it's a gaudy contract, but just like with all of these contracts, as time goes on, that number is going to seem not as bad. Do I think Dak is the best quarterback in the league? Of course not. But to me, he's like a fringe top 10 quarterback, somewhere between like 10 and 12, I would say. But that's how it goes, and good for him. Glad he got his money. The other surprise for Week 1 was the biggest upset of the week. A lot of survival pools that were busted because of the New England Patriots beating the Cincinnati Bengals pretty easily. I mean, the Bengals, Joe Burrow wasn't hurt this offseason. He had all the training camp. Yes, there was the whole Jamar Chase issue, but everybody assumed that the Bengals will get off to a better start than they have previously. And the Patriots, under a new head coach and new quarterback and Jacoby Brissett, they actually pretty much dominated the game. The final score, I think, was within a touchdown, but that was because Cincinnati scored late. So huge win for New England. Not very many people expected them to go into Cincinnati and win. It's definitely the biggest thing about my preseason predictions that I feel a little iffy about, because Cincinnati did not look good in week 1, and the schedule's only going to get harder. I still don't think New England is a great team, but for week 1, it was a huge win. I think it also kind of is interesting, plays into another headline that I feel like from week 1 that's kind of outside of the on the field stuff, is Bill Belichick. This first year, Bill Belichick is not a part of the New England Patriots. And as you can see, he's been doing all sorts of things on TV. He's been on different shows. He's on the Manning Cast. He's on Pat McAfee, ESPN, everywhere. So I think it's interesting to get to see Bill Belichick in a different light. Not so serious that you get from press conferences and years before. And you get to actually see his intelligence on a regular basis, like way more access to Bill than we've had in all the years of him being a coach. So I think it's interesting the kind of tie-in of seeing Bill's greatness outside of the NFL, and then also being able to see the Patriots play better than expected on the field. Is kind of an interesting contrast. So now those who are new to me speaking about sports don't know, but those who are familiar with what I put online know that every week after the week I release my top 5 and worst 5 teams in the NFL. So I'm going to do the same thing for week 1. Now, keep in mind, these rankings are not about where I think they're going to be at the end of the season. It's not about like a legacy thing. It's solely based on where they are right now in the season based on how they played so far. So for week 1 NFL top 5 and worst 5, here it goes. So at number 1, I'm putting the San Francisco 49ers. Like I mentioned earlier, they had a dominant performance over a good team without arguably their best player. That's there's nowhere else to put them but at number 1 right now. At number 2, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. They won a close game against another really good team. It was going back and forth. I actually think the score could have been a lot larger of a margin of victory, but there was a lot of mistakes on both sides. But I think the Chiefs still showed that even with all the new pieces that they're adding, they're going to be successful. So I have them at number 2. Number 3, I have the Detroit Lions. They showed a lot of the same characteristics that people got excited about from last year. They're strong, they're tough, their offensive line and defensive line are dominating. The way they controlled overtime and basically just smash mouth football, running the ball down the Rams' throat to get the touchdown and win was very impressive. So I have them at number 3. At number 4, I have the Houston Texans. Obviously, I did predict before the season that I feel like they'll end up being the number 1 seed in the AFC. I don't believe that they look like the number 1 team as of right now, but their win was still good. They were tested against a division rival, which is always tough. And C.J. Stroud showed that he should be right back in the mix. And with all the receivers, especially adding Stephon Diggs, who scored 2 touchdowns this week, it looks like they're right on track, and I have them at number 4 after week 1. And pulling in at number 5, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people expected them to lose to the Packers in Brazil this week. They were able to get over the hump, get the win. Saquon Barkley looked great, and I'm sure he's ecstatic to not be on the team he's been on his whole career, the sorry New York Giants. And they looked decent enough to be at the number 5 spot after week 1. So speaking of terrible teams, I'm going to give you the worst 5 after week 1. At the 28th ranked team, I'm going with the Washington Commanders. Kind of pretty much what we expected. They have some pieces here and there, but not able to put it together yet. Obviously, they have a rookie quarterback, so it's going to take some time. So for now, I have them at 28. At 29, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. They look terrible. They were on the road, yes, against a division rival. Yes, those are tough conditions, but I honestly don't think the Chargers are going to be that great this year. So not being able to move the ball consistently on the Chargers team only putting up, I believe, 10 points. Not very impressive, so I have them at 29. At number 30, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. Never thought after week one that I would have them in the worst 5 teams, but based on their performance against the New England Patriots, who I don't expect to end up with more than 5 wins on the season, that's where they have to go. They were at home. Everybody was healthy. They've dealt with injury issues before, so for them to have everybody healthy and lose like that, it's a pretty bad look. So I have the Bengals at 30. At 31, I have the Carolina Panthers. They got destroyed by the New Orleans Saints. I think that in itself was pretty much expected, but I think the biggest issue was even with adding Deontay Johnson, there didn't really seem to be much positive growth over last year to this year, which is not a good sign. But they're not the worst team right now. At number 32, and the worst team in the league, the New York Giants. Yes, the same team that I spoke about Saquon spent his whole career with before. They look terrible. The uniforms they used in week one, terrible. The play on the field, terrible. Their $40 million quarterback, terrible. I didn't expect much wins from them before, but I definitely don't now. So, oh my gosh,